right? So folks can see. Let me see here if I can get, so we'll go here and share. Oh shit, excuse me. I remember that this happens. This gets a little screwy. I'm actually going to move this. Got it. I want to stop share. I'm going to reshare the different screen because the audio sometimes did not work very well. If I have it on my secondary screen. All right, so everybody can see this here. This is the presentation that I'm going to go through. I'm going to start with real quick who I am. I used to do this with a colleague of mine. Unfortunately, she had to step away to work on some other items, but you'll see her picture here. She is awesome. You should reach out to her too, even if she's not a part of this. But once this gets expanded, here we go. All right. So who am I? James Lewis. This is a more flattering picture, right, than the way I look today. But I am the VP of People for an organization called Flash. Flash recently acquired a Chicago-based company called Arrive, which is the parent organization to ParkWiz and Best Parking. I've been there for about 6 years, and I run all things people, HR, talent acquisition, benefits administration, and the like. I grew up a technology recruiter. I've been doing it for the better part of 20 years. So I like to think, at least to some extent, I have a pretty good handle on what hiring managers as well as recruiters are looking for throughout the interview process and the hiring process. And what we're going to cover today, right, is really focusing in on telling your story, right? And the things that you're going to need to help start thinking about what your resume is going to look like what you're going to put on there, how you're going to prepare for interviews, like how the projects you're taking part in, like how you should start thinking about them and breaking them down as you're going to ultimately be telling your story, right? So that's kind of where we're going to be focusing today. There's also some networking goodness, right? And the different platforms that you should probably be a part of and all that kind of stuff. And then later on, we'll be going through how to build your resume, right? Which this kind of plays into as well. And then later on down towards the end of the cohort, we'll go through interviewing, right? And there's a few parts there, both from a behavioral as well as a technical perspective on how to best prepare and what hiring managers are going to be looking for. So that's the real quick, hey, this is me and kind of what we're going to be looking to accomplish, excuse me, through our meetings. And it's nice to meet everybody, by the way. It is nice to see you. So I'm going to start here, right, with discussion around GitHub. And I would imagine that now that the cohort has started and obviously that you began this career journey, right, to become an engineer, that everybody's familiar with GitHub at the very least, right? You've all established GitHubs at this point, GitHub profiles or some sort of Git, right, or repository to kind of work through and showcase some of your work. This is really important, right? I can't stress that enough. Having a GitHub profile demonstrates a lot of things. It does demonstrate growth and learning, but the biggest thing, right, I think is passion and commitment. And this is what I really think is very important to those that are transitioning to engineering. The number of commits and your activity on GitHub actually demonstrates to hiring managers or recruiters, if they're worth their salt, right, that you are actually bought in on making this change, right? This isn't oh, I heard engineering is cool and I can make some decent money and I'm going to do it. If you go to your GitHub and there's no commits, right, there's no repositories that you've kind of created or contributed to, then you're not really telling a story that this is something that you really want to do, right? So GitHub actually is pretty important in this respect to kind of showcase that you're actually interested in doing this. So definitely create one. Definitely commit some code. This article, or not article, excuse me, this video is by an engineer and kind of talking through the importance of GitHub within the open source community. So I'm going to go ahead and start this, and hopefully it connects.
go with GitHub. But really, as long as you have some public facing presence on one of these platforms, I think you'll be fine, because there's not that much of a difference. People are going to be able to browse your code and all that. All right, let's take a look at my GitHub profile as an example. So I set that up several years ago and just kind of started releasing all of my open source stuff on my GitHub, and I've got a couple of projects here. So they recently rolled out a change where they let you sort the project that are displayed here, and you can take advantage of that and kind of put your best work out there so people can see what you're all about. And I think this is really a key part of having a good online portfolio, or a good online presence as a developer. I think you should start with your blog or write about programming, and then very soon after, or almost immediately, you want to add something like a GitHub profile or a GitLab profile or Bitbucket profile, where you just share some of your code so people can see what your skill levels are, and they can just get a feel for you. And I think it really helps having some open source projects here. And the things you start with, they don't have to be super impressive, right? Like, for example, I did this little thing where I was not happy that there weren't any good README templates for open source projects out there. So I started this README template repository, and it got a couple of likes, and that stuff is very easy to set up, but it actually provides some value to people, and people are going to see that basically you want to make the world a better place, right? Because you're putting this work in and you're giving it away for free. And so stuff like that, it really shows that, you care about software, you care about programming, that you want to give back to the community. And I really care about those things. And so this is a great way to do that. And then at the same time, get some credit for it. So when you're applying for a job, or someone's going to seek out your GitHub portfolio or your GitLab or Bitbucket portfolio, they're just going to see that you're active and, you're passionate about this stuff. And now with something like Schedule, which has, a couple of thousand likes on GitHub now, or stars or whatever, with this stuff, it's all about the humble beginnings, right? I wrote this over a weekend, threw it out there. People on Reddit hated it. And now it's it's a really popular Python library on GitHub. So if you have something like that has put me in touch with a lot of people and opened a lot of opportunities for me. So this is great, but you just got to try a bunch of things, because you never really know what's going to get traction, what people are going to like. But to kind of put a conclusion on that, yes, absolutely. I think if you're serious about building an online presence as a developer, I would definitely start with a personal website, add GitHub as soon as possible. And then you definitely want a LinkedIn profile as well, I think. And you probably want to think about adding a Twitter account as well. And then I think you've got your bases pretty much covered. But at least that's what worked for me. And that's, I'm kind of biased towards that, but I've seen that work really well in other people. So this is kind of the strategy that I would take. All right. So if you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to have many more videos on this topic.
All right. So
and kind of how to build your online presence as a developer, as a Python developer. And if you have any more questions about this topic, then feel free to drop a comment below the video, or reach out to me on Twitter, or send me an email. Cool. Thank you very much.
All right. So hopefully that jives. Hopefully that makes sense, right? There's a reason why GitHub makes a lot of sense, right? It's obviously active within the community. It does show some value, potentially value, and as well, it's a learning opportunity. I think that's something that we don't want to look past as well. So definitely follow some good folks, follow each other, right? See what other folks are doing, and do your best to learn and put your best foot forward. So that's GitHub. Lots of value there. As we kind of discussed, right? Do I need to here? GitHub is one way, right, for you to kind of tell your story, right? And telling your story is something that you'll hear multiple times throughout this presentation and other presentations as well that I'm going to be part of. It's a important thing to do, right? You have to be able to tell your story on your resume, in your interviews, right? And as well as you ultimately are embarking on as an engineer, you're going to have to be able to tell a story, right? Sprints are stories to some extent. You have to be able to break things down into logical components and be able to explain them to a diverse set of audience, right? So it is very good to start thinking about things as a story. We're all familiar with different methods here. You know, the one of the big ones, right, is the STAR method. In addition to the STAR, this is a slight variation, the SMART stories format, but the STAR method is what? Situation, task, action, response, right? What exactly was the situation that you were in, right? What were you tasked to handle that situation? What were the actions that you actually took, and what was the result? The SMART format is very, very similar, right? It is situational, specifics, and meaning, right? So again, so what exactly the situation is, the action, the results, and then the theme, right? Of that you can kind of create throughout that story. These are great ways, right, to think about your past experiences, as well as describing this any sort of project that you've been a part of. It's absolutely integral, and it's a great way to think through how you're putting yourselves out there in a public or social way, right? On GitHub, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or whatever the hell it is that you're going to be embarking on from a social perspective. So basically, these are potential interview questions, right, that you're going to come up with or come up against. People want to know, right? They want to know specifics, and when we get to the resume portion, you know, data kind of rules, right? Like, I'm always going to be looking for data, not just behavioral situational components, but if you can talk about the results, right? What was the situation? What were the results? And the stuff in the middle is kind of meat, right? It's an important way to think through how you're presenting yourself in pretty much any scenario that's career related. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that? Is that cool? All right. So networking yourself, right? Like, does anybody actually enjoy networking? Are there people that actually enjoy this, enjoy going and putting yourselves out there and going to meetups and things like that? Some of it is nice, but some of it's also pretty difficult. But on a social perspective, like as far as social media and technology, it's pretty easy to do, right? There are lots of places to start, right? There is an About Me page. You can always start there if you'd like. So some sort of like a tree, right? To this kind of a launching point to many other things. Yeah, there are other tools and platforms to use at this point beyond About Me, but it's a good place, right? As a starting point to get people to all the different components that could represent you online. And then of course there's LinkedIn. Has everybody developed a LinkedIn profile at this point? I'm hoping so. If not, do it. It is very important for you to do. That's what recruiters look at. That's what hiring managers look at. That's what should be listed on your resume as well. So make sure that you do develop a LinkedIn profile. There are a number of things that can kind of help your LinkedIn profile stand out. Obviously, a headline, a good photo. The good photo is actually important, like not like in a glamour model type of way, but in like, don't make it a photo that is you partying or that can't give a clear picture of your face, right? Like, just make sure that it's relevant to the business business community, even if it is a business social site. Use relevant keywords, right? You want to talk through, you know, who you are, what you've done, what you aspire to do, right? To make sure you do land in Boolean searches, because that's how most recruiters are going to be looking. Fill out your entire profile, right? Definitely want to make sure that you are representing your career appropriately. I personally do not want a spitting image of a resume on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn should have a little bit more personality. And it should be more of a highlight that begs for people to reach out to learn a little bit more versus the nitty gritty that you would actually be highlighting on a resume. Definitely, as you are embarking on a new career here, I would include your contact information, right? You know, what you feel comfortable, maybe not listing your mobile number, right? Like that might be a little bit much, but a personal email for sure, right? Or being open to messaging. Those things will definitely help, right? As people are probably going to be reaching out to you, right? And you want to make it easy for them to reach out for you versus having to look for information. So definitely put that out there. This is a great link. I'll be sharing this presentation, but you definitely want to take a look at the tips for junior developers on LinkedIn. There's some worthwhile information here. But the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk through is the summary. Right, like summaries on resumes, I think are probably unnecessary for what it is that you're going to be targeting at this point, and probably in general. But I think on LinkedIn, it is a good representation, and certainly for you as you're taking on a new career path. I think putting in a summary about why and what is pretty important. Right, so there are a couple of profiles that I've actually highlighted here that were Code Platoon students. That this is kind of what they put together as they started their career search, right? So this is something that Darnell put together. I'm going to read through this real quick, so sorry. But I'm a 6-year Air Force veteran turned software engineer. During my time in the Air Force, I was an aerospace propulsion technician, but I began coding during my free time and absolutely fell in love with it. When it came time for me to re-enlist, I decided to get out of the Air Force to pursue a career in software development. I spend pretty much every day learning as much as I can about coding and honing my skills, and I'm excited to see how far I can push my skills, how much I can learn, and what cool stuff I can build. So that is a good way to represent, hey, why I got enrolled, right? And why I am looking to become a software engineer. He's talking about curiosity, right? He's talking about a sense, a desire to build and learn, right? These are all things, right, that any engineer is going to want to have and be able to kind of talk through, right? Always be learning, always want to build, always want to solve, right? These are wonderful attributes to have. So next we've got Sean. Sean had a similar, right, slightly different tweak, but I'm a newly initiated software developer who works diligently and efficiently to find creative solutions to difficult problems. My enduring curiosity propels me to tinker with new technology and cash them into my skill set. Working with others, sharing our victories and occasional setbacks are some of my favorite parts of coding. I have people skills, enjoy algorithms, and have experience with numerous languages and tools. Same thing, like this is a good way to position himself. He's not calling himself a senior engineer, but he's definitely saying, hey, I want to solve problems, right? I want to think creatively. I want to work with a team, right? And I want to work with people. Like these are good things, right? That kind of talk a little bit about who he is as a person. And why he's looking to take on the challenge, right, of being a software engineer. So these are obviously just examples of a good summary or a good way to kind of position yourself on LinkedIn that could possibly draw attention to help you through your career transition. Hopefully those make sense. So networking. I don't know if anybody here is on Twitter. Twitter's different now than it used to be, right? Obviously, it's a pretty polarizing platform along with Facebook, but at the same point in time, it is a great place to get ideas, right? To understand trends, to know what people are thinking, to know what is hot, to know what is trending. And when it comes to technology, that's a pretty important thing, right? So I think even if you're not looking to engage with the platform, which is not something that you need to do, it is a good place to see what other people within the community are talking about, right? And what might be of interest to you. I've highlighted a few folks here, right, that I think are worth kind of following, right, to see what they're talking about, what's trending. There are obviously other channels or content providers like TechCrunch or Wired that could be worthwhile as well. There's a lot of noise on Twitter, and I know that, right? You could definitely set alerts in regards to topics of interest if you'd like, but it is I think it is worthwhile if you'd like. The other thing that here is check out Mary Meeker's Internet Trends Report. For years and years, she's put it out. I actually don't know if it's still planning since she did leave her organization for a new opportunity, but one of the best known analysts in providing an understanding of current state of technology and what trends are coming and what we need to prepare for. So definitely do seek that out, just again, to have an understanding what the hell is going on in the world in regards to technology and what might be of interest to you, right? So networking's changed, right? It's getting back to normal-ish, right? Because a year ago, right, there really wasn't much in-person networking. There is starting to be some in-person networking events, but the beauty is I don't think remote or online networking is going away, even in the form of meetups, right? So tech happy hours, tech in motions, online meetups, like they're everywhere, no matter where you are in any city, any region, right, and even on a national scale. And you'd be surprised at the stuff you can learn and the people that actually speak at these, right, to get, again, an understanding of specific topics, right? These are worthwhile things to attend. Not that you have a ton of spare time right now, I understand, but it is a worthwhile thing to research and see what's going on in different regions, different cities, different municipalities, different tech scenes, to meet somebody, to possibly network, right? To engage for the future, if not for today. Hey, I appreciate that topic you did on or that speech you did on this topic. It was awesome. Thanks a lot. Maybe I could reach out with a question at some point in time in the future, right? These that can go a long way for a lot of people, not everybody, but some people really enjoy. Hey, I reached out. There's somebody that my message resonated. I'll remember that it resonated with them if they ever do want to reach out. Like those things are nice to do, right? So networking in that respect is always very positive. There are online communities as well, right? You've got built-in sites, not just in Chicago anymore, but all across the United States, in most major metropolitan areas. AngelList is a great place as well. Product Hunt to understand smaller organizations, their open needs. And then, American Inno, there's a lot of different sites there too. It's not just Chicago, Boston, New York, Austin, and others, right? To understand what's going on in different technology communities, different products that are being launched, different successes, different challenges. These are great ways to get a pulse on what's happening with the community and position yourself for conversations, right? So it is a worthwhile thing. So when we do actually go to in-person networking events, right, which will happen at some point, but even when you're talking about online networking events, I think the biggest thing to take away is you just try to manage your expectations, right? Like you're not going to go and talk everybody's ear off and get 100 different cards and 15 different warm introductions, right, to different things. Just have realistic expectations. If you have one or two good conversations, that's a win, right? Right, but don't force them, right? Try to enter a conversation. It doesn't always have to be about technology or the topic at hand. It can be about lunch that you had earlier that day or whatever the hell it is. Make it easy, right, to enter, and don't push yourself too hard. Don't make it seem forced to either yourself or to anybody that you're engaging with. If you do go, it's nice to have go with somebody that and if you do meet somebody, right, if there's a way to get an introduction, always a positive thing. The other thing, that going back to the meetups, oftentimes there's a published list of people that have said that they were going to go. Use that too, right, to understand like who's going to be there. Like, is it somebody that I know? Is there somebody that works at X company that I actually have an interest in, right? It's good to have an understanding of who the list of folks is going to be, if possible, and there's sometimes a way to gain that, right? But when you actually are engaging with someone in conversation, just some tricks of the trade, if you will. Try to say their name a couple of times, right, to make sure that you remember it, both up front and then as well as you close out the conversation. Thank them for their time. Definitely be a listener, right? It is good to interject and offer your opinions, but it's also very good to just sit back and listen to whatever folks are talking about, and then when it makes sense to offer what you can. Definitely get business cards, offer yours. if you don't have a business card, get a couple printed up, right? It could say student, it could say whatever. I don't really care, right? It could say full stack engineer, it could say full stack developer, front end developer, back end developer, whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish. But definitely put a card together, right? To when you are in a social situation, it's an easy way to hand it off, right? It is always good to follow up with an email. And I think there's different schools of thought in regards to the email follow-up, both from interviews as well as through networking. I personally think it goes a long way. Just to, again, hey, thanks a lot. It was great meeting you. Appreciate your time. If you include a personal anecdote from that conversation, even better, right? Because it shows that you found them memorable and you're making yourself memorable there as well. So it's a way to kind of just create a bit of a foundational understanding of who the heck you are, right, with somebody that might be able to help you down the line. And then be kind, right? If they're be kind and return favors. If there is something that you could do for them, if there's a part of the conversation, or they had were looking for insight around something, or you offered a little bit of research, follow up with it, right? Those types of things do mean a lot to the folks that you're engaging with. So, be kind, be nice, follow up, listen, remember names, try to, draw from personal experiences. And, the biggest thing is really set expectations appropriately, like for yourself, right? Otherwise, it can be a disappointing experience, and it shouldn't be, right? And that's all I got, right? That's all I got for today, anyway. Just kind of an introduction on, the Smart Stories format, the thinking about your experiences as stories, and then a way to kind of present yourself during both networking as well as on social networking sites. So that's really all I had. But I am welcome and ready to ask any questions or answer any questions for anybody. Oh, one other thing real quick. Use LinkedIn, right? Like, I'm on LinkedIn, by the way. Please do not hesitate to send a message or an invitation to me or anybody else here that's part of the calling. You got to grow your networks, right? That's very important and a big thing to do as you're ultimately going to be embarking on a search. So yeah, now with that, any questions, thoughts, concerns, criticisms?
I guess I have a question. So, like, a lot of our students are probably making a huge career change, like maybe they've never had a tech job before. And that can be kind of, again, it's hard to get your foot in the door in terms of switching careers and getting that first opportunity. Aside from like networking, is there anything that you can maybe recommend? I think LinkedIn is great. I will attest to that. Like, I am not a social media person user. Like, I'm not a huge LinkedIn user, but recruiters will reach out to you, especially for tech jobs. There's so many tech jobs out there. They're going to be scanning LinkedIn, looking for any buzzwords and contacting you. So again, we're going to be going through adding to your LinkedIn. We're going to have some career prep later on in the cohort. But again, I can attest to LinkedIn being a source for potential jobs. But I guess going back to my question, just getting your foot in the door into a new career, is there anything that you can give in terms of advice or just like insights that might help our students here that are making big career transitions?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of, not trying to repeat the content here, but positioning yourself out there as an aspiring engineer, I think is the best thing that you could possibly do. And we'll get into this as well later on in regards to the interview prep. One thing that I would try to avoid doing is over-representing or overcompensating in regards to your capabilities. Like, put yourself out there as an aspiring or junior engineer. You're not a senior engineer yet, and that's okay, right? Like, that's okay. Like, everybody starts somewhere, right? So I think, putting yourself out there with a bit of a focus area versus a jack of all trades or Jane of all trades makes a lot more sense too, where it's like you're looking to find your passion, right? But you might not calling yourself a full stack engineer today is very different than it used to be 15, 20 years ago, right? But I think it's fair to say that, but say, you have a specific passion or area of interest. You love playing with, front end technologies and getting down to the pixel perfect component. Like, you're almost more interested in the creative or the design aspect than you are, the systems architecture, right? Like, that's not something that really, whatever, right? But I think, instead of trying to be everything, focus in on one thing, and then as well, trying to be active. I think that helps, and hone in on the things that every engineer and hiring manager is going to be looking for. Outside of hard skills, there's a lot, right? There's the problem solving, the creativity, the curiosity. Like that, these are things that every engineer needs to have if they're going to be good outside of the technical skill set. So highlight those types of things, and tell the story about why you want to be an engineer, right? I think those are really good things. Did that make sense?
Yep, no, definitely up with that. I would kind of add, always be authentic. I agree. I don't believe in the philosophy of lying on your resume in terms of listing things that they want to hear. I think, again, honesty generally is the best policy. I would not recommend embellishing, but again, someone else, like other resume or writers or hiring managers, might say, yeah, you should embellish. So you're going to get like a lot of different advice. It's what you think is best in the end. So accept advice, but don't just say, all right, this is how it's got to be. Kind of just think about it and like, yeah, this makes sense, or nah, I don't think that piece of advice makes sense. And make your resume personal, make your LinkedIn personal, as James said, and kind of show who you are through that.
Yeah, in regards to the embellishment piece, just real quickly, like that, like I would agree that honesty is the best policy, 100%. And when it comes to technology, like if you're presenting yourself as such, a hiring manager is going to figure that out if you are such, right? Like if you actually are that person that you said they are, or said you are. So I think it's best to try to be as real, right, as makes sense. I would agree with that.
Any other questions for James?
Okay.
So with the whole like get real kind of mentality, I've also got like a lot of advice from other people who've like been in the game way longer than me, and they kind of say like you're kind of required to oversell yourself just because you're always going to have the whole imposter syndrome. So if you try to say, oh, I need to get to my level, it's always going to be less. So you always got to shoot more because you're already less. Mentally, you're kind of like setting the standard for you. I don't know if I'm kind of like looping over my phone conversation, but you got to oversell yourself because you're not going to know what you're capable of until you get into that position. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong, right? And I don't think that statement's wrong. It's really how you interpret it, right? Like I think there's a difference between beyond like there's a difference between aspiring for the next level up, right, which is something that you should absolutely do, right? And you could position yourself as such, and a gross misstatement in regards to what you're capable of, right? There's a difference, right? There's a happy medium there, right? And I feel the latter, right, the gross misstatement, you want to avoid that, right? You could definitely write aspirational capabilities to some extent, but it shouldn't be far removed. It can be stretches, right? But they shouldn't be far removed from what you're capable of. There's a difference between stretching and mislabeling, right, your capabilities. Like in my mind, that's the way. That's what I would say.
Okay. Well, then, kind of asking for your best advice. What would you say would be like the best method or kind of like practice or stretch, like you just said, to get your whole interviewing skills besides just doing normal interviews, like strengthening your interview skill? That makes sense. Like what did you do to practice? Like, did you just say, hey buddy, can you interview me real quick? Or like how now we have all these leak codes, mock interview stuff. Like what was your like, this helped me the most with interviews?
Talking to yourself in the mirror, honestly, I think is not a bad thing to do, because you get to see what your number one, you get to look like, and then you have to get comfortable talking about yourself, right? Like, yeah, right. Well, you do. Like, the interview is talking about yourself. Like, the resume, it is marketing yourself. Like, you are trying to sell yourself. You have to be comfortable talking about yourself. You have to be comfortable talking about your capabilities. You can practice coding until you're blue in the face, right? And I suggest that you do, right? Like, you should go to Project Euler and pick out problems and try to break them down, and go to Stack Overflow and see how people are solving complex issues that you can't figure out. You should absolutely do those things, right? But you also need to be able to talk, right? You need to be able to communicate. This is one thing that every employer is going to be looking for, right? I know that when we interview engineers or everybody, right? Like, I want to hear them talk through problems, right? Our engineering interviews, it's not pair programming. They're like guided interviews. Like, we have an engineer that's like, here's a problem. Let's figure this out. How are we going to work this together? And it's hands to keyboard for the candidate, right? But we're looking to see how are they approaching the problem? How are they breaking it down? What is their thought process? Do they see edge cases, right? Do they realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm thinking this out loud, like, I'm struggling a little bit understanding like where I go next. That is better to hear as an interviewer than silence, where there's nothing, because then you don't know what they're actually thinking. It doesn't show collaboration, it shows poor communication. So to that end, one of the things that you could definitely do, and I definitely just talk about yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Ask friends to ask you questions. Get comfortable talking about yourself, how you think things through, and how you're looking to solve problems. I think that is the biggest thing that you could do outside of course, mastering multiple technologies. Good luck with that one, right? Like, it's going to take a little while. It doesn't happen on day one.
I have a question in regards to the evolving nature of tech. Maybe you've run across somebody or a group that is really good or like specializes in the kind of like the cutting edge evolvements. So like one of the worst things that I've heard we can do is become super, super proficient in a dead language or something that's going to be dead soon enough. But one of the hardest things we can do is kind of keep your finger on the pulse of things that they aren't here yet, but they're like on the horizon and will be will be with us sooner than later, or sooner rather than later, I mean.
So are you asking, if I understand the question, it's like, how the hell do you keep up, right, with the ever-changing, right, the ever-changing technology landscape, right, to make sure you stay relevant?
Yeah. Is there any like group of people that's really what they specialize on watching?
Well, I think that there are tech communities, absolutely. That's like I could actually probably look up at a few. But if you even just go to networking sites, you go to Stack Overflow, you could probably see the same thing, right? That the things that are trending are the things that are important, right? In regards to today's technology. I mean, the days of C++, and there's a lot of things. Like, it depends upon the discipline and the domain that you want to support, right? I was about to say C++ is a dead language. Well, that's bullshit. C++ is not a dead language, right? There's a lot of organizations that continue to support C++ because it's low level, super quick, fast code, right? Like, there's no reason to, but it's not very forgiving, right? A lot of our e-commerce programs building something else, right? So it depends upon the domain, right, that you're ultimately looking to support. But it's always changing. Like, to your end, like, the technologies are always changing. There's new languages that are popping up, new frameworks that you need to keep up on. It is a constant that you can expect as an engineer, right? That things will always be changing. Like my current organization, Flash, we have a stack. One of our applications is built in C#, right? I haven't actually supported the C# or a .NET organization in quite some time, but holy moly, like I forgot, right? Like there's a lot that you can do within .NET, right? And not only that, like there's more modern frameworks built off of it, right? There's .NET Core and there's great Azure DevOps services. Like there's a lot that you can do here that I just was like, yeah, Microsoft is pretty much dead in regards to the development language. Well, that's far from the truth, right? There's a lot of things, and there's really there's no silver bullet here that I can give you, other than just try to keep a pulse, right? Go to where engineers go and see what they're talking about. You are going to be an engineer. Consider yourself an engineer. Go forth and be an engineer, which is constantly be learning, right? Not a great answer. I mean, there's no good answer to that. It's just always changing.
No, that's pretty good. That's about what I was looking for is there either is or there isn't like somebody that does that. So
Yeah.
All right. Any last questions for James here? All right. Yep. James, thanks so much for coming in. Again, we're going to be seeing James a few more times throughout the cohort. So again, get some great advice on resume writing and then interviewing. Both soft and hard skills, I believe, are the topics. But yeah, we'll see James soon enough. But thanks so much, James. Hope the new year start off well for you, and we'll see you probably like in a month from now, I think.
You got it. Happy Valentine's, everyone.
All right. Thanks so much, James. Take care.
Valentine's. Thank you.